So I'd like to introduce Jonathan Lee. We're in the home stretch, guys. I really want you guys, come on, get enthusiastic. Come on. Hey. This is it. It's almost done. This is Jonathan Lee. Jonathan Lee, I have a little story. We have a saying, actually, I learned this from Alex Driver, that Hungarian women don't export well. So we actually managed to capture Jonathan Lee as a really, really good programmer by via of his girlfriend, who is Hungarian, and she moved home to Hungary, and she brought him home. And we are so happy for this. But the original plan was that he was supposed to come back and work in on the East Coast, and that doesn't seem to happen. That doesn't seem to happen. That doesn't seem to happen. So I think he may have fallen victim to the same disease as a lot of foreign nationals in Hungary, that you marry a Hungarian woman, you live in Hungary.
So is this one going to be okay?
I'm not sure. It seems like you're dead. Try that.
All right. Can everybody hear me? Good. Yes, Hungarian women, I highly recommend it if you get the chance. Okay. Oh, we're done now. What my talk is going to be about is not about Hungarian women. It's going to be about interfacing the JChem Suite outside of Java. As we all know, it was written in Java, and it's easily accessible through Java. But how do we get to it if really Java's not our bag? I am a web services project manager, so that's near and dear to my heart, and I'd like to talk about that. But there's also plenty of other interfaces that were touched on by other speakers, but I'm going to go through and review this with you. Talk about the interfaces, some of the situational factors, some of the questions that you need to answer to find out, oh, well, maybe I should be using one interface over another. And then I'll talk about each individually, the SQL interface with the Cartridge, the .NET interface, web services. If we get time, we can get into the details and do a short demo. And then also workflow integrations. Okay, so with all the speakers that you've heard today and you will hear tomorrow, they're highlighting all the different tools that are in the JChem Suite. We've seen this morning Reactor is an important one. Standardizer is important in a lot of different things. Of course, searching or JChem base, which Sabulch talked about. So how do we get to use all of those things with your own application? Of course, Java, direct, plain old Java objects. Those are going to be directly accessible. But also you can use a SQL language through the Cartridge. This is especially good for environments that use Oracle, of course. The .NET, we have a new .NET interface that works really, really well. And as well as with the 5.3 release, we're going to be adding the Marvin beans. And of course, web services, it's something that's platform and language independent. It's something that's going to be usable if all of these other guys aren't useful for you. And of course, workflow. What are some of the questions that we need to ask? Well, what's the language that is best for our company or that we want to choose? If it's Java, we can directly use it. If it's .NET, maybe that's better. Maybe we have a lot of developers that like other web languages, scripting languages. I know we've got some Ruby folks in the house. And that might point you to using one interface over another. Of course, the data environment, if you've got Oracle, SQL, the Cartridge is a very good opportunity for you. If you're going to be creating a desktop client or a web client, that might also influence your decision. And then, of course, if you're using what Brett talked about, a service-oriented architecture, maybe the web services will fit right in there. Really, the main key issue here is we've got a great set of tools, and we want to know how can we best use those and kind of use those the opportunities that we've given you to the best. JChem Cartridge. Again, we want to leverage your investment with Oracle. Of course, you get the replication and the scaling and that sort of thing, security. With the Cartridge, you get to leverage, or you get to have leverage using the stored procedures inside of Oracle to do database work, but also to farm out those process-intensive work out to an external or external to Oracle server and run that in Java bytecode. Oracle supports, of course, the SQL language and a lot of the JChem modules, some that we talked about, and you can read them here. The .NET solution is a pure .NET solution. Before we had something slightly different. Now we've got something that's a no cost to you. It's a native DLL, so it's simpler, it's faster, easier to use than that older solution. And of course, as we know, with the 5.3, everything will be covered, including the Marvin GUIs. And we saw, I think, Akash demoed those this morning, and they look great, I think. And also the JChem for Excel. So if you ever need examples of how do we use those .NET frameworks, those are two great examples to check out. Web services. The important part here is that we wanted to make the interfaces, or we wanted to make the tools interoperable with all the languages that you might be using. And so this was one of the best, the easiest ways to do that is to follow the WSI standards using SOAP and WSDL. These are well known in the industry. And make the services or the tools reusable and accessible to perhaps your other services that you're using or your own client applications. The great thing about WSDL is that the client generation steps are almost automated by a lot of the frameworks out there in many of the different languages. So you don't have to worry about that part. You just worry about your own business logic creation. We support web languages, the hot ones out there. I put up there Ajax is one that we're going to demo. I demoed a Python example yesterday. Ruby, PHP are other great ones to use. And then also, if you want to, you can also use Java, C#, those classic languages. And with web services, you get to, instead of just making a client application that's on your desktop, bring it out to the web, and not have to have all of your services on that desktop. And of course, we're growing the list of modules that are included. Here, this slide is just talking about the fact that we've got Perl, Python, Ruby, and JavaScript. Before web services, you weren't able to really get into using the ChemAxon tools. And now, with the introduction of SOAP, we've unlocked those guys. And now you get to use the JChem Web Services with simple things like just setting targets, expressions. This is an example for chemical terms expressions. And it makes it quite easy for you to use the ChemAxon tools, even from things that are not directly usable, like Java. This is an architecture slide. I just wanted to talk to you about this slide because we're using Tomcat 6 and Axis 2. These are both open source Java technologies. And since they're Java technology, you can put them on any platform that runs Java. And this is an OS list of things that we've tested against and we know that the server works on. So again, we're trying to make things interoperable. We're trying to make things work on any of the type of systems that you want to build and you want to put your applications on or your server on. The current and future services, right now we've got 4 main ones: searching, standardizing, molecular conversion, and chemical terms. I think Brett talked a lot about them in his talk, but used different words for them. Of course, searching. Standardizing is doing kind of like a normalizing of structures. It's good for if you want to put it on the front end of your registration system. Molecular conversion, of course, translating those structures is always important in a lot of applications. And chemical terms evaluation service. We had a talk this morning about the chemical terms expressions. A lot of good information there, property calculations, I think what Brett called them. And also useful for like virtual lead exploration, that sort of thing. Some of the future enhancements we talked about that will come is reactor. We're introducing a new reactor interface in 5.3, allowing raw SQL execution, relational table searching. This is actually a pretty big one, and we're using some in-house software to do that. But that's really going to open up searching and data retrieval from not just your structure tables, but also other related tables. Data manipulation, of course, add, edit, and delete. And then batch processing, being able to pass multi-molecule files and having the service run through all of those. This is a demo that we've got on our website. It's an Ajax demo of JChem Search. Right now you can see it's actually running. It's running in www.chemaxon.com, which is we're hosting in Hungary. And behind the scenes, we've loaded the data and, for example, table information. On ChemAxon.com, we have a subset of the NCI database, is about 250,000 structures, so a sizable amount. And here I just want to show that you can browse through these structures fairly quickly, even to the middle or to the end. And then, of course, our query page. This might look a little bit like the JSP example that Szabolcs demonstrated. And I'll just draw something simple, so you can see that the query works, of course, very quickly. It's about 1,000 or 3/4 of 750 structures there, and again, you can browse through those. What I wanted to say is that when I mentioned JSP was the fact that with JSP, that's an older technology. We're now moving into where we've been hearing all the requests for, we want to use these new technologies. We've heard about Ajax. This is an Ajax client. It's using a windowing system. I think it's jQuery with the interface framework, which is it's a windowing framework, and you can, of course, click and drag these windows, minimize and maximize, and close. The second point that I wanted to make, besides the speed, that's okay. The second point that I wanted to make was that I make good finger puppets. Just kind of go like that. All right. Thank you. Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Fantastic. Is that the application is fully featured still. So, you've got, you can query against the fields, and these fields, the operators will be different depending on if they're numerical fields or timestamps or text messages, or sorry, text fields. Of course, we've got all the full features of the searching with the options. And then finally, the last thing that I certainly like is this URL generator. It really makes it clear on what's being searched, and it can be sent to your colleagues to say, oh, I've done this search, or this is an important set of molecules, and you can send it along, and it'll return exactly the same search parameters as well as the search results. Okay. There are other things that I can show, but let's move on to the last part here. Workflow integrations. ChemAxon components exist for a lot of the other workflow, the main workflow framework. Accelerate Pipeline Pilot, the 9 workbench that's created by the Infocom folks in Japan, and we also have InfoSense Analytics workflow widgets. So, in summary, I just want to say that there are plenty of ways to connect to the ChemAxon or JChem Suite of tools. We've got of course, Java, but SQL, with .NET languages, and any of the web scripting languages through JChem Web Services, and then of course the workflow integration. And these are in your book, but if you want, you can take a look at those, and those are links for more information. Okay, great. That's all I've got. Is there any questions? Okay. Question. Personally, even though I've Web service is going to allow you to expand to further opportunities. If you don't want to be using Java, or if you've got developers that don't want to use Java or that have other specialty software techniques that they want to use. Also, if you're like Red Company and you have service management, you want to plug in services.
Here.
Oh, sorry. I make it very short. So let's if I say I started with the web services, so what benefit would I have in contrary of starting a new, just simple Java application? It's just, for me, it's really the benefit. Why web services instead of Java application when you start anew? So let's say I don't start with something it's already Java, but if I have to make decision now, why should I use web services?
Brett even a little bit that there was an idea of corporate buy-in. They were like, well, we're going to make services also is also a plus.
Another question here? Just a moment.
So I was looking at the list. Can I register a structure with a web service or just search?
Register, by register you mean can I add one to the database? Yes, you can add one to the database. I think we've added that in the latest one of 5.3. We don't have a registration web service per se. It's kind of feature that those underlying parts are there, and then we one.
Thanks.
Any other questions for Jonathan? Okay, Bill, just a moment.
The demo that you showed using Ajax, is that built on components that you supply, or is that built using whatever Ajax toolkit the organization happens to feel most comfortable with, and then using things like the Marvin applet for structured drawing?
Okay, so the question was what? So the question was. The question was, did we actually, yes, we did use Marvin applet in our application. We used a mixture of jQuery, which is a framework for Java for Ajax, as well as I think it's called Interface, which is what allowed us to put in that windowing system. You can use whatever you want. We also have a module that just deals with creating those SOAP messages. I think it's called soap.js or .javascript. And so you can, if you'd like to use it, you can absolutely use that JavaScript with whatever framework you want to use to be doing the GUI parts of it. Those are all in the download. I think there's a link on the in the slide. If you want to download that, you get the Ajax client for free. It is configurable, and you can use it however you wish.
Other questions?
Sure.
So under the ChemAxon website, we have an option to encrypt the message between the client and server, or still plain text business.
Sorry, say that last one again.
Can you speak on So under the ChemAxon web service architectures, the information are exchanged between clients and also somewhere in a server. That actually do you have an option to encrypt the data or still plain text?
Sure. The question was with the message passing between client and server, is there a way to encrypt the data? Yes, in fact, there are a couple of ways that we've looked at. One, of course, is just the simple and old standard of using HTTPS, which is a secure protocol of HTTP. But there's also other web service modules. I think it's called Web Service Security and Secure Transmission. But those are other modules that you can use to make sure that those things are do get encrypted before they're sent over the wire.
I believe you also have some experience with that, encrypting across those kind of layers. So I think also GSK actually, that's a big issue with GSK and their model. So you could also follow up with how they do that.
Other questions? Other questions before we move on to the last talk? Well, once again, let's thank Jonathan for his presentation.